And I think it's more challenging for a new brand because the awareness is not there.
People tend to avoid doing that. There are several trust building issues. Actually, Royal Enfield does it pretty well. You may have seen the Royal Enfield thing. So it's a community. They're not selling bikes at all. If everyone is using AI, then everything is bad. Everyone will be mediocre. So there has to be some people who use AI better than other people do. How do I make you aware that I'm a product that you should consider? You will not get fooled or cheated.
I want to talk to you about ONDC. What is probably one misconception about ONDC? Hello and welcome to another episode of Xpandable with Fibonacci X. Xpandable is a platform where we meet topic experts, founders, investors, and try to demystify the process of venture building. Thank you for subscribing to us and please follow our content. Today we have a very special guest. We have Shubho Sengupta. He is a veteran in communication and digital marketing area with experience in both private and public sectors. He is currently advisor for digital marketing at ONDC's Nirmith Bharat initiatives. Before this, he was an advisor at Kulmani Bharat. He has worked with top agencies like Ogilvy, JWT, and has contributed to campaigns for brands like Gillette, Pepsi, Coke, Motorola, and Star ESPN. Thank you, Shubho. Wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here on this forum. It's a very popular forum and I've been watching your podcasts, they're very high quality, so it's an honor.
Thank you. And when I think about marketing and branding, especially when we discuss with our portfolio companies, we have these weekly governance calls where we spend a lot of time with founders. And there are so many terms which get thrown around. People use branding, positioning, and sales. And what do these terms mean and how are these terms different? First, I would like you to think or tell us from a perspective of a new brand.
Well, at the fundamental core, it's, trust. Whatever you're doing is to build trust, especially if you're a, new brand, a startup or something like that. So people have to trust you to not just buy from you, but, listen to you, take you seriously, look forward to your mails, even open your mails, if there is trust, there's a very high chance of, even a total stranger listening to you, buying into your pitch, your offer or whatever it's called. So at the heart of all branding or, there are a lot of these buzzwords. That's all fine, But it's basically a trust building, long-term trust building exercise. And there are several phases and there's a lot of architecture within it. But that's okay. You don't have to follow the entire architecture, but you should always keep in mind, here is a consumer and should be a long-term consumer. How do I build trust, So that's the fundamental pillar on which everything else rests, all buzzwords rests.
Right. And I think it's more challenging for a new brand because the awareness is not there, right? So the trust is not easy. When you go probably pitch your customer online or offline, when they interact with you, that trust is basically you are at 0 at that point.
Yes, that's right. So which is why a lot of startups, don't sell too heavily right in the beginning. They're not in your face saying, here's my product, here's the discount, come and buy. So people tend to avoid doing that. There are several trust building issues. It could be a roadshow, it could be like these SaaS companies do, just try it for free for 90 days or, whatever. There is no risk to the buyer. And of course, there are a lot of other things also, like outside the sale. If you look at the classical marketing funnel, there's awareness. So, how do I make you aware that I'm a product that you should consider? You will not get fooled or cheated or whatever it is. Okay, so that awareness is very critical. And there are 50 different things you can do depending on the category that you're in.
Right. And I was just before this episode, I was looking at your background and I was thinking about, well, you have worked for FMCG giants like Coke, and now you're on the public sector side. How has your worked and the audience evolved, right? Because the nature of campaigns you do for somebody like PepsiCo or Coke, I think there is a lot of legacy and awareness already with those brands, right?
So, as you use the word legacy, so, legacy brands, historically, you go back 10 years, 20 years,
right.
At that time there was the internet from the late 90s or something, but it was still very analog kind of thing, banners and mailers and so on. The internet, the consumer internet, the two-way conversation that is really took off after 2015, I think, the Jio launch, where broadband became very, the internet became very accessible and very cheap. And as you probably know, India has the cheapest broadband, costs and at fairly high speeds in the world. So all that happened recently, but when I was at Coke, this is, 2010, 11, 12. So it was still pretty... A Coke or Gillette or, all these things, right from the mid-90s. So it was still very analog, very traditional kind of approach. While one can say that, finally the brand, how you build a brand has not fundamentally changed. There is a new medium called digital and it's all pervasive and you have to put digital at the core. That's fine. But the consumer is still the same. The consumer's instincts, why should I buy this phone and not the other phone? It's kind of similar to what it was even 50 years back. It's a mix of utility, there is aspiration, there is, all these things put together.
And how does, as a person who is advising these brands, how does your work or your approach is different when you're thinking about a consumer brand versus a government initiative?
Well, finally, it's the value. So even if it's a Coca-Cola, there is a certain value that comes to the table. It might be very intangible, it might be very aspirational and so on, but the value must be very clear to the consumer. Similarly with the government, for example, I was at MyGov, the citizen engagement platform. Why would people come to MyGov regularly? We had to answer that question. For example, during COVID, MyGov was the voice of truth. So any news that went out to the masses, to the public, so we kind of did a lot of infographics and video and, podcast and stuff like that. So there was some value people saw in us, which is why, even today, if you fly some Indigo Airlines, the do's and don'ts are from COVID time. My team did it. It is still there. Maintain a distance, wear a mask, all that graphics, whenever I take, Indigo, I see it on the website, it's the same. So there's some value that people see in it, right? So which makes people come. Similarly, right now, we are kind of an e-commerce open network, right? So what is the value that people, smaller sellers, hyper-local buyers see in us? It must be very clear. There must be a differentiator between us and the other, monopolistic, e-commerce platforms, which is why people will come to us. So there has to be, what we call, the classic right brain, left brain thing.
Correct.
I believe there has to be a rational reason. It cannot be, even if it's fashion, which is completely aspirational, and we know how people sell, markups of 10,000% and so on, but still there's a value. The reason people buy let's say Mercedes-Benz over whatever, something else, is very clear. There is this very strong idea of aspiration, how I will stand out, which is a very rational process, even though it's very intangible and aspirational.
So the need, there is this theory of the jobs theory, right?
Right.
That every product or a service which I am consuming or you're consuming is serving a particular job in our life, whether that's an emotional need or any other need, right?
Yeah. It's your, again, your classic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So where does your product fit in? Is it a roti kapda makan kind of thing? Or is it, you're kind of self-actualized and, you need a Prada, to make a statement. I think I don't need a Prada, but I mean, there are people who do, and so there is a very rational structure to, branding.
Right.
Yeah.
And often when we are discussing with founders, the discussion is very separate for D2C brands versus B2B brands. And what I've realized over, last decade or so, most of the stories which are discussed in the meetings usually come from consumer brands when we are discussing a B2B case, right? B2B is totally different when you think about branding, etc., etc. So what is your observation of differentiation when we think about branding and awareness for B2C versus B2B?
So, I mean, with the advent of, various digital platforms, the lines are blurring. While it's still B2B and you have to reach out to a CFO, for example, or, whatever, some technical officer or something. Both, B2B borrows heavily from, the storytelling, narratives methods. I mean, if you look at, the world's largest IT companies, okay, you will see a human story somewhere in their branding efforts. Okay, so this is a product, this is what it does, and this is how it helps the common man. And the story will start with the common man, how his life is transformed because of that, some B2B product. So, I remember when I was in advertising about 30 years back, it was just a mailer kind of thing to a particular person in the company, right? Usually the technical head or the financial head or something. That has stopped, right? So, because of digital and its ability to reach a lot of people very quickly, okay, so these stories, narratives are happening. And so, it's a culture of likes, how many shares, and so on. It's not just, talking to one person. So, I mean, the fundamental thing is still it's become storytelling.
Right. And how do you become a good storyteller? Because a lot of times when founders are meeting stakeholders, let's say investors or other folks, and this has a lot to do with storytelling. Right? Are you appealing to what I want to hear, maybe my emotions, etc., etc., or are you making your vision more believable to me? Right? Although we have all these numbers on slides where we show, okay, this is what the TAM is, this is how big is the market, this is the gap, right? So how does one, from a young founder perspective, become a good storyteller?
So I have a position of this. I have a point of view on this. So I see a lot of young founders, attach too much importance to narratives, storytellings and all that, completely forgetting the product, right? One needs to remember that Google didn't have really do any narrative storytelling or something. If you have a great tech product, which has a huge advantage, you do your storytelling a little later. Of course you have to do, but you do it a later, focus on a product. So, in my view, even fantastic storytelling is not going to cover up a bad product or a bad service, okay? No matter how good your story is. So, focus on your product and see how it genuinely helps people, okay? Then craft out some authentic, use cases or something like that. Your storytelling starts from there. Okay, so and storytelling is basically, it's like a product demo in a sense. It's like a product demo or a service demo. But, your audience is, they have their, if you dig a little deeper into their behavioral, trends and so on, you'll find many threads, So, you kind of plug into those threads and build a story around it. So, I mean, something like that, you start there. It's a product demo, basically.
Right.
But it's not about the product. It's about the effect of the product on the consumer.
And the timing also matters.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Even
of
if
course.
the product is good,
Yeah.
is the market ready?
Yeah, I mean, one storytelling, one of the best examples I can give is, with Coca-Cola. So what is it? It's just sugar and water. That's it. It's a lot of people think it's not even very healthy, right? Not in this current context, but What it did very well is to tell a lot of stories about people enjoying life at a very simplistic level. Okay, young people, or if you see Coca-Cola ads on TV, I haven't seen too many now, but when we used to do it, there would always be a family sitting around a table. And the son is a student in some other city, he's trying to come back, and there's Coca-Cola involved in his journey, something like that. It was always
Right.
a story, and the Coke, the bottle was central to the story. So similarly, your product can be anything, but try and put the product or the product benefit, not product literally, it could be the benefit also sometimes, intrinsic, central to the story. A lot of what I've seen in a lot of ad agencies is people, the story consumes the product, kills the product. It's such a great story, right? Brand owners, your startup or whoever it is, must be careful that, the product is the hero, not the story. So this is a mistake I see, I don't know, 60-70% of startups or whatever, even legacy brands making. So one needs to be careful.
Right, right. So product quality, feedback, storytelling, and timing. I think all of these have to align
Yeah,
for
correct.
the awareness to work and that story to really stick to your consumer or whoever you're trying to sell it.
Yeah, Zomato does a fairly good job. You must have seen those short videos of their logistics, delivery stuff, right? So it's always about how being a Zomato, delivery person has affected their lives, made it slightly better, something like that. So that's a narrative, that's a story. So what happens? Do you sell more, food because of that? You don't. But you get the feeling that these people are important. So ultimately a brand has to be human. It must be like a productive, contributing member of society. So, which is why, one word which is not very used these days is community building. So, one role of a good, strong brand is to build the community, bring people together. It must be inclusive. It's not just about the product, it's about the people, bringing people together, which Airbnb has done very well. Strangers coming together, that kind of thing. So my favorite, brand stories are always about strangers coming together. Coca-Cola does it. Airbnb has done it. Okay. In the startup, I was a startup involved with 2-3 startups in the past. So it's always, it's okay. Your product is selling, it's fine. But for example, I was in a women's athletic wear kind of thing. And I was always always asking myself and my, co-founders, how do we build a community? It's okay, you can sell a, running t-shirt or a running shorts and all that. But for me, more important was building a community, which we could not. I should be honest about it. But that was the priority. How do I make people come and hang out with me because they're getting something without even buying? That's okay. All right. Like these cycling groups that you have. Actually, Royal Enfield does it pretty well. You may have seen the Royal Enfield thing. So it's a community. They're not selling bikes at all. But if you go to Royal Enfield and you hang out in that, I think it was a blog, I'm talking about 10-15 years back. Okay, you will never go anywhere else. You've become a part of the Bullet family. So that family thing, community, or whatever you call it, is super important for brand building. I know there are a lot of brands which are celebrating the individual, which is fine. Like Apple is not about family. Okay, Apple is celebrating you, very luxury, high-end fashion. It's about celebrating the individual, but it's still a cult. It is still, I am one of the few. So I may not be the Coca-Cola, everyone coming together, because Coke, don't forget, is a mass audience. But a Prada is always, I'm one of the 5 people in this country who own a Prada. That kind of it has to belong to something. A brand is, it's about feeling, I belong to this. I'm special. A brand has to Anyway, I'm kind of drifting, but generally that's the
But
direction.
yeah, I mean that is a very native desire in humans. Either we are status seeking or we are money seeking for safety. So this exclusivity serves that need, that I have that status, that I am one of the few. So that is a very innate desire deep rooted in all of us. Why do we go for certain, and premium luxury brands exploit that to the maximum, right? That okay, let's say Patek Philippe, which is a luxury watch. Many people may not know if they are not watch enthusiasts, right? They will know Rolex, but they will not know this, right? So probably you can, let's say if you are in New York, you can probably see it on display, but you cannot buy it because
Yes, I've
probably
heard of
you are
that.
not on the list,
That's
or they will just say it's not available.
That's right. That's right.
But it's at the Tiffany's, you can see it on the display. But so it works that way, right? So I want to touch, you mentioned something, human element of the brand. How does that work? Let's say for a tech brand, how do founders think about this human element?
So, the other thing about branding, I was coming to that, is the new generation of consumers is kind of different from the older generations. Okay, they don't believe in brands so much. Okay, it's the shelf life of a brand has reduced greatly. Okay, so you complimented on my shoes. Okay, these are duplicates, and 20 years back, when you wore a duplicate, people would say, "Oh, ye to fake hai." So you would come down a little bit socially. Mine is a real thing, yours is a fake. Now that barrier is breaking because people you must have seen a lot of things. China made this sells for, they make
Right.
it for $10 and he's selling it for $500.
Correct.
What is the use? I'll get the same thing somewhere else. So, and on Instagram, people are very quick to jump onto something and very quick to delete something out of their lives. It's like apps. You must have, I'm sure 95% of the apps, 98% are deleted in the next 72 hours after downloading. Okay. So we live in that world. So a brand has to try extra harder to stay top of mind. Okay. And the only way to do that, especially for tech-enabled brands, and these days most brands are tech-enabled. I mean, the classic thing is not so much there, is to be of great utility. That must be very clear. I mean, if you're building a product, you have to, before getting into narrative or storytelling, which is what I was saying, you have to kind of make it as seamless, and you have to solve a problem, a real problem. Okay. So you have to invest time in those things. What is the problem that my brand is solving? Instead of, 30 years back, is my brand making me look good or, whatever. Abhi, the starting point is, what is the problem? What is the consumer problem that my brand has solved? So that's the starting point of brand building. And product also, of course.
Right. And about the human element, how do we bring that in? Let's say once you have identified a problem, you start building some awareness. Then how do you think about the human element? Because that is important.
Human element is the same. Wherever you go, whatever the product, love, envy, fear, hate, wanting to belong to something. This is, has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. Nothing has changed. So you have to figure out, your brand by solving a problem. How does it make someone's life better? Solving a problem is making my life better, whether it's B2B or D2C or whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Right.
So how does it make my life better? Life is hard. It's not an easy life. No matter whether you're a rich man or a poor man, life is very hard.
Okay. Right.
So, what is this? What is it about this brand? It could be a phone or a shampoo or whatever. It doesn't matter. That makes my life, makes me feel a little happy, makes things a little smoother, or, removes roadblocks in my personal journey. Something like that we have to figure out. And then build stories, narratives around that.
Right. And something which you mentioned, community building, is so important. Because a lot of time when younger D2C brands are selling on aggregator platform, a lot of commissions they pay. If they are able to build community, they can actually bring that margin to a better level, right? Because they don't have to pay that commission, and that's something. When people are writing off D2C brands, I'm always looking, are they doing something to have control over distribution, having their own community, where they're communicating directly with the consumer versus going through a Amazon or any other aggregator platform? Because that doesn't give you any, that take rate is already 25-30% is already gone, right? But if you're able to build that community, then you have that, you can retain that 30% with you.
It depends on the product, the category, the audience. A community does not mean a captive community, that they are just sitting there waiting for information from you. Okay. It's a community which is looking for something and you are solving it, like the Royal Enfield community. It is not about the Royal Enfield bike at all, it's about travel. Okay, so similarly, if you are doing something about, that's why these brands get into fashion, into golf, a BMW sponsoring golf kind of thing. What has BMW got to do with golf? It's about the community, building a community. And yes, that community of golf players, very high chance of buying a BMW or whatever, some other car. So it doesn't have to always be a hard kind of thing. If it's a tech product, yes, there's an Apple community which talks about, latest apps and stuff like that.
Right.
So it depends on what your product is, really. Food, for example. Okay. So suppose you're a masala powder. That's fine, But then you can't talk about your masala powder and its offers. You have to talk about food. You have to sponsor MasterChef or whatever, something like that. So then you build a community of people who are interested in cooking, in foodies, eating, etc. And of course, it's hosted by you, right? So your benefit of using your product is there. I'm just giving an example. This is very difficult for a lot of brands to it needs a lot of investment in thinking. I'm manufacturing a pen, and it's a pen. It's a nice pen, and pen or mouse actually is more relevant. Okay, but how do I build a mouse community? You can't, right? But people who use mouse, what other touch points are there? It could be sports. I don't know. It doesn't have to be, the mouse, using a mouse experience.
Right.
We have to figure out. It could be something a lot of brands are doing, getting into some social area. Like helping society, etc. That sort of thing. It could be that also. It needs a lot of thinking, a lot of investment in thinking. It's not simple, and initially the journey for the first year or 2 years is not easy. I think out of 10 things that you do, 7 will fail, and most startup founders don't like the word failure. They take it very personally. I can understand. But when you're building a brand, you have to, not jump in and do big things, but try small incremental things. And most importantly, in building a brand is listening. You can't sit in a room and build a brand. You have to go out to the market, listen to people's problems, how your product or service is solving those problems. Your core, research, will come from there. And then you start putting things together.
So spending time with users, building personas, getting to know real pain points.
Absolutely. Building personas, spending time with, could be a dealer network or whatever it is very, very important.
So yeah, that's important, being on the ground. So I recommend something similar to founders, is that probably speak to your first 100 users directly. Don't rely on your team. Take those calls, whether you are B2B SaaS or whether you are D2C brand, and see how they're interacting. Take notes. And now we have all these tools like ChatGPT, etc. We can put all the notes and get some green signals from there. But it's very important as a founder that you directly speak to first few 100 customers.
Yes, always. Yeah, keep on doing it. I know some founders who speak with, say, 10 customers a day. Product is successful, but they keep doing it even after 5, 6, 7 years. So that must be there. And I know a lot of people who will not speak with the customers. In fact, I was in a conversation early this morning. I was asking someone, do you, pick up the phone and talk to your consumers, customers? And he was saying, no, we have a, section on our website. If anyone has a question, query, they can write to us. And we respond immediately. But that's not it, no. You have to go and sit with your consumer and, start a conversation and figure out, is your product helping or not helping?
Right.
So, you have to invest time.
Yeah. And some of those signals you would otherwise miss if you're not speaking to the customer.
Yeah.
Right. Andy Grove has this great book of Only the Paranoid Survive.
Yes.
Right. So that is mostly about this, how to be obsessed.
Yeah.
And as the organization grows bigger, then you have these different layers, but you still need to speak to the customer.
Yeah, also, this customer thing, which is why brand building it's not a brand department, like we used to do 20 years back.
Right.
It's not a department. The responsibility for building a brand is across everything, especially product. I mean, Google ratings, for example, App Store, is so important because before downloading something, people look at the ratings. So if you got a 2 or 3, no chance. Nobody is going to download you, right? So now, what are ratings a direct function of? Ratings are a direct function of your product experience. So if your product experience is bad, someone did not get the delivery or something on time or something, some log out over here, etc., they're going to leave a very bad review. So product must also be involved in brand building very closely. Which is why, I tell my friends, get rid of the MBA, brand building manager, whatever from IIM, get a data analyst with 1 year's experience who can go over the, whatever SaaS product you're using, the Excel sheets and tell you, acha, yes, a trend, So you kind of map what is happening and then you kind of act on it. That person is very important, your data analyst.
You mentioned experience. How do new brands build that experience? Because they don't have resources, right? And invariably, all the discussions with young founders go to companies which are already established. So obviously, you don't have those resources. So you can't build the same experience online and offline both because of the constraints, right? Within those constraints, what are some things which founders can do to build that great experience?
So, again, you go back to the consumer and you realize there are many cohorts. It's not one consumer for all pan-India. So, maybe you should focus on NCR, for example. If you're a food kind of thing, maybe you can focus on Calcutta. Okay, so, I'll make a success out of this particular cohort. And if it works, I'm going to scale it up. Okay?
Right.
But a lot of people think, I want to go national and so on. It doesn't always work. It's better to start with a small group of people and see what is working, what is not working. You keep on testing your things and it's, very easy to test your ideas now, with a small group of customers or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And as you expand, then every new cohort you're adding to your existing cohort is like a new launch.
See, if you're a startup, you don't have to do what Pepsi does. Who says? First 2-3 years, don't do these things. Don't jump, I have to build a brand. First you create a very seamless, Google is, an example I keep going back to. So entire brand, if ऐसे नहीं कि brand कुछ नहीं किया, they focused on the product. So the product got a reputation for being seamless, for being very good, basically. Things should be, listen, I have a great product, please try it. That's
right.
Your focus, okay. And, tell me your story, how it helped you. That should be the thing. You don't need like a 30-slide PPT to do brand building. Just focus on one product, 2-3 people, start there. Think small, don't think big. If you're on the first 1 or 2, 0 to 2, 0 to 3.
Right.
Because then if you get a great review and, it kind of shows up on Google, ratings or something, that's your brand building.
Word of mouth.
Yeah,
organic.
word of mouth. So do those
that's
things.
That's even better. right? Because in that case, CAC is like almost zero.
Yeah, go to colleges and, brand building is not just consumer, it's also people who are joining you. Okay, so go to colleges and talk about your product, I mean, most colleges will let you come and say something about your product, at recruitment, whatever, that kind of time. So you open a stall and talk about your product, that's fine.
Right. I want to talk to you about ONDC because you're helping them as of now. How do you think they are planning to disrupt or change the way India buys online? And what is probably one misconception about ONDC?
Well, I mean, I don't think there's any misconception. What we've been very clear from day one is the Honorable Prime Minister's, vision of bringing the fruits of digital India to, right down the pyramid to the, remotest corners of India. And that's what we believe, in, and that's what we try and do, So, unlike the monopoly platforms, which can take up to 30% or 40% platform fees, we are a 0% kind of thing. We charge very minimum. I mean, what the restaurant charges, you have to pay, right? What the rider charges, you have to pay, right? But we don't create special clubs for consumers and, take money and, promote the bigger spenders. We don't do all that. We are a very democratic, open network, first of all. Okay. So we are like a highway. Anyone can set up their stall anywhere. The cars are going past and you are, if your product is good, you will sell, So this is what differentiates us from the larger monopolies in this market. And we are growing very fast, I can tell you that. Okay. And our desire is not to compete with these, monopolies who have been around for 10 years, 12 years.
Right.
Most of them, I think none of them are making profits and they can stay here for the next 10 years without making any profits. Okay. Our way of looking at this is very, very different. Okay. So, we are for the MSMEs, the smaller traders who are left out. Okay. We are very hyper local. We support artisans also, right? So that's our differentiator and we are very happy with our growth so far. There is no issue, there is no problem at all that way. We are not trying to become a, world's number one. We don't need to. We have a very clear niche and, as in spite of being around for 10 plus years, e-commerce has reached only, I think, 5 or 7% of Indians. Okay. What about the remaining 95? Chalo, 95% nahi, but I think there are 600, 700 Indians on the consumer internet. Okay. And hardly a fraction is on the monopolies. What about the rest? Right. So we have a huge market to kind of cover. And I think we're doing we have the right leadership, the right teams, we're taking the right steps.
Right. And what patterns are you observing in terms of digital adoption in smaller towns? Because that's also an interest area for us because we look at a lot of brands which are trying to build in the what people call India 2, India 3 or Middle India, however you want to, whichever term is preferred. So what patterns have you observed in terms of digital adoption in those parts of the country?
I mean, as you know, tier 2, tier 3 digital adoption is growing much faster. And this has been happening for a while, 5-7 years or more. So, any brand, whether it's in, e-commerce or anything else, would be stupid not to look at those tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities as, the main, consumer bases. That is not to say that, metros are not important. Big cities, the top 50 cities are not important. Of course they are. Okay. But even there, it's not that black and white. SNA ki, people who live in the cities spend more money, etc. And people in tier 2, tier 3, they don't spend money, they're poor. Not at all. There's a lot of mixing happening. A lot of migration happening to the cities. A lot of people in the cities who want value. They're not into ordering 5,000 rupees stuff. They'll spend 50 rupees, but they want a good product. So that's our approach, I mean, it's the Bharat which has been left out or by these monopolies that we are after.
And that's an interesting thing. I was recently speaking to a founder setting up EV dealerships. And we were just discussing that when you set up a dealership, let's say in a tier 2 town, it actually gives you more coverage because you have surrounding blocks, etc., and other clusters of villages, and you can access them. The CAC is much lower, and the dealership has much coverage versus a tier 1 city where you will be limited to a certain area, etc. Because there people are traveling to the weekly market, doing other things, and then they go back, right? Maybe they travel 40 kilometers to go to a certain town, and then they go back to their house, right? So those dealerships are actually giving them better results versus tier 1 EV dealerships, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to any of these larger platforms, okay, so they are taking tier 2, tier 3, even smaller cities very, very seriously. They know that's where the next wave is going to come from. So we're very lucky that we are, at Nirmith Bharat, we are at the right time, at the right place. Instead of sinking so much money in urban, kind of centers which are already saturated, we are looking at the smaller cities, right from the word go, right from the beginning. 4 or 5 months, 3-4 months back that we started off.
So talk about Nirmith Bharat. What is it about, and is it different from ONDC, or is it like an umbrella?
ONDC is the larger ecosystem. It's a network. Okay, there are sellers, there are buyers. It's like a highway. Okay, so there are sellers who come in. There's a seller program. Okay, we at DigiHeart, the app that I'm involved with, is only about buyers, right? So you want to buy something, you come, you buy it. It could be, and we support MSMEs in a big way. Artisans, smaller towns, etc.
I think lastly I wanted to spend some time on the role of AI in this whole process, marketing, branding, etc. Maybe we start at very high level. What are your first thoughts? Because I know you have been around since the tech came. Probably you are one of the early adopters, I could say that. And now you have seen that, the role probably in the 90s till about 2023, 2024, and now the AI is probably the next wave. So what are your thoughts? What are the observations at this point?
There's a lot of hype and a lot of hope also around AI. Like earlier, mobile also, there was a lot of hype and a lot of hope. So it depends, I mean, AI is definitely a huge boon for marketing, and it's already, for example, in things like targeting consumers, AI is already being used by the larger marketing companies. Okay, it's being used big time by IT companies. AI gives you a sharper, faster, kind of thing. So there's no doubt that AI is already proving its worth. Okay, moving forward, AI will. There's a lot of paranoia, I think, about AI taking away jobs. My personal take on this is, yes, there will be some areas which will become redundant, but it's going to open up 10 times more. Okay, so, fast skilling and so on will be key. So AI is going to open up a lot of new areas, new territories for products, brands, especially, like we were discussing, tier 2, tier 3. How do you create a product for farmers, for example? Okay. How do you solve a pollution problem through AI? Okay, so it will prove its worth. Right now, it's very transactional, okay, like ChatGPT. Most people use ChatGPT. It's very transactional, but AI will, as the months and years go past, AI will get more and more into insights, into trends, into stuff like that.
So you think on the content part, it will totally take over the creative process, or there'll still be human element to that?
It cannot take over completely. I mean, AI has to be, if everyone is using AI, then, everything is bad. Then everyone will be mediocre. So there has to be some people who use AI better than other people do. Okay, I see a lot of people, just jumping in and creating some video which is saturated. People are beginning not to notice AI created videos because they don't have any storyline. It's very basic kind of thing. I mean, not all, most of them. So it needs, very old fashioned storytelling skills, and that, that's why a very good prompt engineer will come in, who gives the right prompts to different AI tools to get, some kind of branding message.
So probably a role of a co-pilot. That's what you
Yeah,
suggesting.
is a co-pilot. Yeah, AI will be a co-pilot. But
like a
what will
default
happen 5 years from now, I don't know. I
Hmm.
wouldn't stand up and say, oh, AI is going to take up everything or whatever. It'll still be, you saw a couple of days back, AI defeated, a ChatGPT in coding or something like that. Okay, 10-hour marathon. So it'll still be a human being who will use AI, and there'll be some people who use better than other people. So it's not about AI, it's the person who's using AI better than other people. So that will make the big difference.
So greater level of self-awareness and using it to probably fill in the gaps where you are weak or where you feel you need more help, right?
Yeah. It'll need very sophisticated inputs, very sophisticated prompt engineering to do really good work through AI.
Right.
I mean, you can always say, make me a video for this camera, and, I think Facebook, Meta is already doing that. You don't have to spend too much time for advertisers in the targeting. So how do you differentiate yourself? That is the human being. That's the, the brand owner. I mean, not the brand manager, but the brand owner. Could
Right.
be an analyst, could be the CEO, whoever it is.
Right. Lastly, what keeps you going? Because I know you have been working for few decades now. And I would say your work is more creative. Now you're on the digital side, but still involves creativity. So I think if you're on this creative track for so many years, how do you keep reaffirming your commitment and rediscovering and adapting first, let's say internet and now AI? So what keeps you going?
So two things. One is everyone is creative. Creative for me is finding out a different way of looking at things using imagination, and that is not restricted to a department. It is anyone. In fact, the best so-called creative ideas come from tech people, come from business people, come from finance people. Okay, my job is to connect the dots. I don't mind saying this, I'm not that creative as a lot of other people that I know, and I don't need to be. I just need to find out, okay, this is, what the business is, and these are the many, many dots that you need to connect. Okay. And once you do that, do a fairly good job of that, which is, like an iceberg, the part under the water. Once you connect all the dots, this iceberg that you see above the water, that's the creative idea, final creative execution. Could be whatever it is, a video, a game, or whatever. That a lot of people can do, or you get a good person who will do it, some young chap, it's fresh out of college, bubbling with ideas. Usko sab kuch samjha do, enable everything for him, then he'll give you the final script. That's okay. So creativity for me is working in a team, but for me personally, it's solving a business problem. Okay, what do I tell the consumer? What are the different dots that we connect? So that is creativity, and that my partners are always usually people in tech, business development and so on. It is not other creative, like 30 years, 20 years back. So there was this creative department and, creative director, associate creative director, art designer. And teen char, we would sit in a corner and think of ideas. Those days are gone, completely gone. And, now it's, you're talking to the analyst.
Right.
I see even if it's a video, whatever. So they'll be sitting and talking to an analyst. What are the trends? That's where it starts.
So it's bottom up rather than top down in the earlier days.
It's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem approach. It can, just connect the dots. Make sure they make sense to the consumer. Solve a problem or something. And then you do the top of the iceberg. Give some, depending on the context, how you'll speak with, someone in South Delhi is different from how you'll speak with someone in, say, Jharkhand. Could be the same product. So that you figure out later. Brand can have many different, avatars for different audiences.
Right. Any last advice for young founders thinking about awareness, branding, building a long-term brand?
My thing is, you don't have to think big. Take incremental steps. Okay. There's too much effort and time wasting, whatever goes into doing a great brand idea. Aise mat karo. You move fast. You try out different ideas. Always do A/B testing, ABCD, whatever. Most marketing doesn't do A/B testing. They say they do, but they don't. Okay, so test your different approaches with different people, and like we were discussing a little while ago, please sit with consumers, listen to them, test everything. Okay, put your these dots together, and then you get into brand building and creative and all that. Keep your ear open, keep listening. Get feedback from the user, from everyone. I guess that's it.
Yeah. No. Wonderful advice, and thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you.
I think this is one of the many conversations probably, because we had many topics which we wanted to cover. So probably in future we'll cover.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.